Good evening, everyone. Can you guys hear me? Am I
Yeah,
audible?
good evening.
Good
Yes.
evening.
Good
Good
evening,
evening.
ma'am.
All
Good
right.
evening.
So we are live on YouTube today, and the ones who are watching me teach on YouTube, this is our very first session for the IELTS academic writing. Okay. So in case if you like the class, this particular Zoom session, then you can enroll into the course as well. And the details have been mentioned in the description box. So you can do the needful. All right, so moving on, how are you guys doing? And how were your sessions for listening and reading? All good?
Yes, yes.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Great,
How are you?
great. I'm fine, thank you so much. All right, so let's wait for another minute for other students to join in, and then we'll start with the writing part today. Okay?
Yeah.
All right. And I also see some old students here. Gautam, have you already attended the writing? I
Yes,
guess.
ma'am. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so it might be repetitive for you because today I'm going to start with the format and the parameters, right?
No problem, ma'am. Yes, sure, ma'am.
No problem. Okay, fine. Then you can continue in the class. And how many of you have already taken the test? The ones who are new here? Anyone who's taking the test for the very first time? Yes, no,
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, first time today.
first time? All right.
Yes,
All
ma'am.
right. Okay, that's nice. That's nice. Fine. So you guys can see my screen?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, ma'am.
Fine, let me just start the presentation. Okay, so the agenda for today, as I already have mentioned, is the format and the parameters. So we'll be understanding the format for the ones who are taking it for the first time, and we'll get into the details of the parameters so that you know, after all, what should be written in your writing so that you provide the examiner with whatever is required. Right? So they're looking for something in your writing, and if you provide them with that particular element and those things that they're looking for, then for sure your scores would be good enough, right? So we'll be looking into that part, the factors or the parameters on which they are assessing you on. So this is your format, writing test. It's for 60 minutes. The very first test is your listening test, followed by the reading test on the same day. And then comes your writing test. There's a gap of hardly 5 minutes, with 5 or 10 minutes between each of these tests. And the writing test is the third one in the sequence. So it starts with listening, reading, followed by writing. So writing, again, just like your reading test, the duration is 60 minutes. You have to complete your writing test in 1 hour. And you have to complete two tasks, task one and task two. So task one, in case of the academic test, which is what we're going to discuss today, is the report writing. And task two is same in both your general training and academic test, which is your essay writing. Okay, so it's going to be the same in both GT and academics. So this part remains the same. However, report writing is something that's different in academic. And in case of your general training, the task one is letter writing. Is that clear to everyone? Somebody asked in the group, I guess day before yesterday or like a week ago, and they had this doubt that whether they'll be given this option of choosing between report and letter in case of task one. That's not there. There's no choice in your IELTS test. They would not give you 2, 3 questions for essay topics and you have to pick one. That's not the case. You're given just one question for your report writing and one essay in case of your academic. Similarly, in case of your general training test, you're given one letter and one essay, and you have to attempt both the questions. There's no or there, or there's no option there. Is that clear to everyone?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, perfect. So when it comes to report writing, it should ideally be completed in 20 minutes. However, there's no demarcation there. It's not that after 20 minutes, the invigilator will come and take your paper. Okay, it's not that. You can divide your own time. You can divide 60 minutes into 30 for each, 20 40, 15 45. That's your choice. Okay, they're not really bothered how you divide your time between task one and task two, but they have given you this time limit, ideally, which is 20 minutes for report writing. That is to complete your task one. You should take not more than 20 minutes. And similarly, to complete your task two, you should not be taking more than 40 minutes. Okay, yet again, I would like to emphasize on the fact that they're not going to take your sheet after 20 minutes. You have your task one and task two both in one sheet of paper. On one side, you have task one, the other side, you have task two, and you have to complete both in 60 minutes. Okay, similarly, in case of your computer delivered test, there's no timer for it. Total is 60 minutes. It's your choice how you divide your time, right? And when it comes to the word limit, it's supposed to be 150 words in case of your task one and 250 words in case of your task two. Okay, so what do you mean by 150 and 250? How much should we write? What do you guys think? How much should be written? Any idea?
No.
At least 115 first task and at least 215 second task.
Yes, perfect. So at least is the keyword here. At least 150 words in task one means that you should not be writing one word lesser than 150. It should be above 150 or at least 150 words. Similarly, in case of your task two, the minimum word limit that you should write is 250 words. Okay. And it should not be below 250 in case of your task two and should not be below 150 in case of your task one, because if it goes below that word limit, you will be penalized. Okay, there would be negative marking, or basically your band score would drop if you write lesser than the prescribed limit. So please remember not to make such a silly mistake that you lose out on your band score just because you haven't reached the word limit. So that's one of the very basic things that you should be keeping in your mind. Having said that, what do you think should be the upper limit? How much should we write?
Not more than 180 for task
In
one.
case of task one, okay. What about task two?
It should be 280
Okay,
or
I
300.
won't use the word should, but we should try to wind up, okay? We should be winding it up by 280. So it's not, there's no hard and fast rule that you have to reach 280 or you have to reach 180. Even if you write 155 words, good enough. It's above 150. That's perfectly fine. Yeah, it depends upon time, of course, and it also depends upon how much content you have. So I always say this: go over quality. Okay, quality should be more than your quantity. Okay, even if you write 155 words and you've covered everything that has to be covered properly with good vocabulary, grammar, sentence structure, and everything that's required after you, that's required from you, then it's perfectly fine. You don't have to write 200 words. You don't even have to reach 150 in case of, 180 in case of your task one. Similarly, in case of your task two, you can wind it up by 260, 270 words. You don't have to reach 300 or 400 words. Some students have this misconception, and if you guys, the ones who are watching me right now, have this misconception that if you write 400 words, you will be scored better. Let me tell you, that's not going to be the case. Number one, because if you write a lot, the chances of making mistakes increase. Okay. So if you write more words, the chances of committing errors would increase, number one. Number two, you might end up repeating your content, because I understand it's very difficult to come up with new ideas, let's say more than 4 ideas in just 40 minutes. So if you're writing 400 words, at the end of the day, I guess you'll be repeating yourself again and again, which makes no sense, which is going to hamper your lexical resource parameter again, because you'll be reusing the vocabulary, you'll be writing the same thing over and over again, which would end up becoming monotonous. So that's the second reason why you should not be focusing on the quantity. Rather than focusing on the quantity, limit the quantity and focus on the quality. Okay, so always follow quality over quantity. Okay, so that was the basic format for the writing test. Then we have 8 different types of questions when it comes to report writing: line graph, bar graph, pie chart, table, multiple charts. And multiple charts basically mean there are more than 2-3 diagrams given to you or 2-3 charts given to you. Then there could be a process or cycle, which also means that, there could be some steps and there's explaining a procedure to you, and then describing objects and map. So more or less, I guess each of the types are self-explanatory. So in the future sessions, we'll be taking up those as well. And apart from that, when it comes to essay, there are again different types which have been covered in the following slides. So I have not put it down here separately, but broadly speaking, it could be choose one side. That's one category. The second one is basically view both sides. And the third one is you're describing or explaining something, which covers problem solution kind of questions or cause and effect kind of questions. Okay, so this is the basic format of your writing test. Any questions so far? Any doubts, any questions?
Ma'am, are we supposed to count each words, or are we used to do it ideally?
See, each and every word, even your articles, will be counted by them. However, when it comes to you counting it, I would say go with the average. What you can do is count the number of words you're writing in the first sentence and multiply it with the number of sentences you have written. Because there you have just 60 minutes, and I don't want you to waste your time in counting the number of words, right? That's not going to be a very valid way of utilizing your time. Number two, if you're taking the computer delivered test, you have a word count in the bottom of the screen where you get the number of words you have written in case of your computer delivered test. Okay. Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Anyone else? All clear? So we shall move forward.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, perfectly fine. And again, another question that usually students ask, I'm not sure whether you have this question in your mind, but I'll just take it up. So some of you guys have this question as to it should be written in capital letters or small letters. So both are fine. You can write all caps, even if you're typing in all caps, it's fine. Even if you're writing in all caps, it's fine. If you're writing in small, of course, you have to keep in mind the rules of English. You have to write the first letter in capital after a full stop. That's obvious. A new sentence starts with a capital letter. And also similarly, like you have to keep in mind your names of places, like nouns, basically names of places, names of person, monuments, and rivers, and all of that have to be capital. The first letter has to be capital, right? For example, New Delhi, N and D is capital, right? So these are the things that you have to keep in your mind. Apart from that, you can write in cursive, you can write in block letters, you can write any which way you want to. Okay. So this is a very petty doubt, but a lot of students have it. So I thought I'll just address it. Okay, moving on to the parameters. So how many of you guys have seen these before in your life? Any idea about what's going on here? Of course, not the old students, the ones who have already taken writing with me. Anyone else? Okay, come on, you can guess it. It's written on top of it. The band descriptors for writing. Okay, that silence is irking me. So what are the band descriptors? What does the examiner see while they're evaluating your, okay, marking criteria, ASMA, perfectly fine. So what do they look for while they're evaluating your task 1 and task 2? They must be seeing something, right? Whenever an examiner is looking at your essay or your report, they must be looking for something in your writing. What is that something that they're looking for?
spellings, sentence formations.
We are not repeating the same word again and again.
Okay, all
Vocab.
right.
Logic,
Vocab.
Logic,
Sentence
vocabulary,
making.
okay.
Grammar.
Grammar, perfectly fine.
addressing the task,
Addressing the task, okay. Okay, Asma, what is task achievement?
As achievement means what they ask, you have to completely give the answer, relevant answer.
Very good, okay.
For example, in essay, they will give some bullet points, okay? Some sub questions like that, agree or disagree. If your essay is not showing that you are completely agree or disagree, it can be marking should be low. The band
All
score
right,
should be low.
all right. More or less on the right track. Good, okay, fine. Anything else? Do they check our ideas? Are they going to grade you on the ideas that you write?
I think no.
No, ma'am. No.
No?
No.
Are you guys sure?
Yes.
Yes.
So you can write any idea that comes to your mind?
But similar to the topic.
Of course. So it
Relevant,
should be
yeah.
relevant to the topic, but you
Yeah.
can write anything. They're not grading your ideas. It's not a test of your intellect, as I always say. Yeah, it's a test of how you express yourself, how well you can express yourself in the English language, basically. That's what they're looking for. They're not looking for your ideas. Your ideas can be terrific. They can be PhD level ideas, but nobody cares about them. Okay. Of course, ideas are needed to express them. You cannot write something without having ideas, but it's not like one idea is graded in comparison to another idea. So it's all good. Even if you write simple ideas, but you express them beautifully, it's good to go. You don't have to be harsh on yourself. You don't have to think twice before writing an idea. Okay, it should just be relevant, of course, but it should not be hi-fi, or it should not be, very technical. Nobody is assessing your intellect here, right? Okay, so format is clear. Let's move on to the parameters. Let's read the band descriptors closely so that we understand each and everything properly. Now, you guys have given me vague terms. Somebody said vocabulary, somebody talked about grammar, somebody said spellings, and then somebody talked about logic. So let's see what all of these actually mean and what we should be looking at. Okay, so the first one is your task achievement. The second parameter or factor on which you're evaluated is your coherence and cohesion. The third one is your lexical resource, and the last one is grammatical range and accuracy. Now, each of these four parameters carries a weightage of 25%, which basically means that each of these parameters are equally important. A lot of students focus on just one parameter and forget about the others, and that's precisely the reason why you're not able to score the desired band score in your writing. So each of them carry 25% weightage, which means that you have to give almost equal attention to each one of them. Right? It's not that you just keep memorizing vocabulary and you keep memorizing new words and you don't focus on your grammar or you don't focus on your task achievement. That will not help you out in scoring 7 or even 6.5. Okay. So moving on to what they mean by task achievement. So the very first one is task achievement, and as Asma mentioned, so they are basically checking whether you have achieved the task. As the name suggests, it's checking whether you have achieved the task. They've given you a task. Have you achieved it? Have you answered whatever the question has asked you? If not, then it is going to be problematic. Then you will not be able to score well in this particular parameter. Probably you score somewhere around 5 bands if you're not addressing everything properly. Okay. And if you miss out on certain parts, then it's again the same thing that you have not talked about each of the different questions given to you. Now, Asma mentioned that, the essay has bullet points. The essays won't have bullet points. Essay has sub-questions or sub-tasks. Bullet points are usually in case of letter writing. You won't get bullet points in case of your report writing as well. So probably you guys confused with that. But here you don't get any bullet points. you would have different types, sub questions. For example, they might ask you about advantages and disadvantages. So if you only write advantages, that means you're not addressing the question properly. You have not talked about the disadvantages. Similarly, if the question is talking about problems as well as solutions, they're asking you to tell the problems of XYZ issue and then the solution to the same issue. And if you're just talking about problems and you're not addressing the solutions, then again, you've partially attended the question. You have not completely addressed it. So that is what they would be looking at while they're evaluating you on this parameter. However, that's not it. Apart from your, whether you're addressing each and every task, they also see whether you're clearly presenting your point of view. So whatever your point of view is, you have to elaborate it properly. If you're agreeing to something, why are you agreeing to it? The reasoning has to be appropriate. You have to expand it properly and elaborate it properly by substantiating it with supporting ideas, examples, or surveys. So it should be very logically written and it should be relevant to the topic. Okay. So one common example I give to this particular parameter, for this particular parameter is, what would you answer if I ask you this question? What is your first name? What would be your answer? Please write it in the chat box. Okay. Okay, most of you have understood task response. All right, all right. Yeah, so basically, if I'm asking you just for your first name, you have to give only your first name. If I had asked only for your last name, you would have given me only or last name. If I'm asking you what is your name, then you can give me your first name, last name, both first and last name. Okay, so you have to be attentive and you have to listen to the question carefully. What if I'm asking you, where do you stay? Instead of asking where were you born, okay, or what is your birthplace? So these are two different places, right? If you mess it up between these two places, and if I'm asking you about your birthplace and you end up telling me about your current location or where you're residing currently, then it's again not addressing the question properly. Though it is related to the question, in both the answers, you are going to give me a name of a place or a city or a town or maybe a capital, right? But you don't understand the question properly and you end up deviating from it. This is called deviation. Even though the answer is slightly associated with the question, it's not appropriate. So you have to be relevant when it comes to the ideas or when it comes to the answer of the question. So this is a very tiny example, but I hope it makes you understand what this parameter actually does. A lot of students do this thing. They come out of the examination hall and they're like, I attempted it properly. I've written 4 ideas. I've covered everything the question has asked. Though they would do that, but what happens is that they would end up deviating. Probably the question is asking about the problems that are associated with tourism, and you end up writing the advantages of tourism. In both the questions, you have talked about tourism, but in one question, in one question, it was asking about the problems associated to tourism. In the other, it was asking about the advantages. And if you mess these questions up, it's definitely going to be incorrect and it would hamper your task achievement. So you need to be very careful about not just picking the main topic idea or the main topic from the question, but you also have to pick up the exact point. What are they asking you? Okay, so they probably are asking for the problems of tourism, and if you end up writing advantages, it would definitely be incorrect. So that's something you have to keep in mind. Let's quickly read what they would require out of us if we want 7. I'm just focusing on 7. You can also read 9 band score here, because 7 is the bare minimum we need to provide them with. So covers the requirements of the task. As I've already explained, whatever the task is asking you, you have answered that properly. Okay, that's the first one. And for the academic task 1, you have to present a clear overview of main trends, differences, or stages. So you have to talk about the trends and the differences, which basically means that you also have to compare. Comparisons are important in case of your report writing. So keep that in your mind. I'm skipping this point because it's about GT. Next is clearly presents and highlights key features, bullet points. Okay, but so whenever you're scoring lesser than 9, there'll always be a but. So but could be more fully extended. Remember, I talked about elaborating a point properly, giving examples, giving instances, giving proper supporting ideas. That is what they're talking about here. You should fully develop your response. It's really important. Till the time you don't do that, if you leave it on the assumption of the reader or the examiner that unko samajh aa jayega, they would understand it on their own, please don't do that. Imagine that the examiner or the reader is a stupid person. Okay, they don't know what you're writing, what you're thinking. Elaborate everything in detail wherever necessary. Of course, you need to remember wherever necessary. Don't over explain anything, but don't leave it to the assumption that, the examiner will get your point. Right? So this is about task achievement. Any doubts here? Nope. All good?
Yes, ma'am. All good.
Great. Okay. Coherence and cohesion. Now, one of you explain what this is. One at a time. What's coherence?
Logical structure.
Logical structure. Okay. Anyone else? Okay, logical structure. Everybody agrees with her?
Sequencing your ideas logically.
Okay, perfectly fine. So sequencing your ideas logically, both of you answered correctly. Here, coherence basically is trying to, here they're going to check whether you are sequencing your ideas in a rational manner, okay, whether your ideas have been sequenced logically or not. And for this, I would like to give you one example. Yet again, a very simple example to, break it down to the basics. How would you define your routine? If I ask you, tell me your routine, how would you state it? I mean, how would you describe your routine? Anyone, like you can type it in the chat box. If you want to unmute yourself, you can unmute and share your routine. If the question is, let's say, probably in your speaking, the question is, share your routine. How would you share it? How would you start? How would you end it?
I'll start with the morning.
Till night. Okay. Anyone else? Come on, let's participate. Okay, morning till night. Anyone else who has a different point of view, who would, narrate or who would describe their routine differently? No? So yeah, Asma is yet again correct. When it comes to your routine, what if I start explaining something like this? So I have my lunch at around 2 p.m. and then I go for a jog around 4. In the morning at 6, I wake up. Then I have my breakfast at 8. Then I read the newspaper at 9. And then in the evening, I have a cup of tea. Then I would have my, afternoon nap at 3 p.m. And then I would go to bed at 10, and then I would do this and that. So would it make sense? Is it coherent? What do you guys think? If I explain my routine in this way. So that is exactly what they would look at while they're reading your essay. The transition from one paragraph to the another has to be smooth. What do we mean by transition? The flow. It should not give any hiccups. Okay, there should not be any hiccups or any haphazard sequencing of idea. It should be very neat and clean, so that the examiner or the reader, whenever they're going through your writing, they don't feel that there is any hiccup or there is any haphazard sequencing of ideas. It should be very neat and clean, and it should not be confusing, basically. Okay, so this is one thing that you have to keep in mind. It should be logical. Okay, and yet again, it's supposed to be from morning till night. If you write the duration or the hours, it's even better. It gives clarity. So this thing has to be in your mind whenever you're writing your ideas. You can also prioritize your ideas. Okay, the most important ideas would go first, and then comes the ideas that are not that relevant according to you. So always start with the idea that is the most relevant when it comes to the question, and then you can move on to weaker ideas, or let's say less relevant ideas. Okay, so this is what you have to do. Here is the sentence: logically organizes information and ideas. There's a clear progression throughout. This is what I meant when I said the flow or the transition should be smooth without any hiccups. Okay. Then comes your cohesion. Cohesion, I guess most of you would understand what cohesion means. It's basically using linking words or cohesive devices to connect your sentences with each other and also your paragraphs with one another, so that again the transition is smooth. So to help you in writing a coherent essay, it's important that you use cohesive devices. They would aid you in basically organizing your information and ideas logically. So cohesive devices should be used appropriately. Now, why would you score a 7-man score if you're doing all of this? Yet again, there's always going to be a but if you're scoring 7. So although there may be some under or overuse. So what they're basically trying to say here is that you're doing everything well, but the only mistake that you're committing to score a 7-band score instead of a 9-band score is that you are overusing or underusing the cohesive devices or the connectors. So some students, what they would do is they would unnecessarily write connectors just because they have been told by someone that if you write more connectors, if you write more linking words, you'll end up scoring better. That's not the case. You just have to use it accurately so that it attracts no attention. That's what the 9-band score says. Right? Uses cohesion in such a way that it attracts no attention. Everyone's clear with the meaning of no attention? What do you mean by it should not attract attention?
That means using connectors unnecessarily.
It basically means that
appropriately.
Yeah, it basically means that when you're using connectors, it should be natural. That when the reader is reading those sentences or that particular paragraph, they don't notice it separately. That, oh, he has used however, he has used moreover, or she has used furthermore. They should not feel that, it has been used unnaturally or it's attracting attention. Because if it's attracting attention, it's been underused or overused. Okay. So not attracting attention basically means that it has been used accurately and appropriately only where it was necessary. Okay. And for coherence, they've given this thing in the 9-band score: skillfully manages paragraphing, which is that you should know how to organize your ideas and when to change one paragraph to the other. Okay. Any doubts here? Coherence, cohesion? I'll quickly give you the connectors also, some basic ones. So the connectors that you use to add similar information. If you're adding similar information, then you will use connectors such as, however, furthermore, in addition to, additionally, moreover. So these are the words you'll use if you want to add similar information. If you want to list down ideas, you can use firstly, secondly, thirdly, fourthly, or you can use lastly. Then if you want to give contradictory information, if you want to contradict what you had said before or what you had said earlier in the previous paragraph or in the previous sentence, then you would use the word however, on the contrary, on the other hand, in contrast. So these are the words you would use if you want to contradict yourself. Okay. Then for conclusion, you would use words like in conclusion, to conclude, to recapitulate, to encapsulate, and to summarize. So these are some basic words that you have to use. We'll be learning about them in detail, but these are the basic words. And if you have any doubts with them specifically, you can of course ask me, but these are the basic connectors that you should be knowing. Okay. Moving on to lexical resource. Yes. So what is lexical resource all about? I'm pretty sure most of you have, gone through this column by now while I was explaining the other columns. So the smart ones can answer.
It's paraphrasing.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Use of sufficient vocabulary.
Yeah.
Okay. You don't have to read use of sufficient vocabulary. Okay. Anything else?
Spelling mistakes.
Spelling mistakes. Okay.
Use of proper word formation.
Okay, you don't have to read it. I am here to read it out. Okay, so yeah, 7-1 score, lexical resource. A lot of students have this misconception with lexical resource is that it's all about vocabulary. So first of all, I want to tell you, it's not all about vocabulary. A major chunk of lexical resource is associated with vocabulary, but the entire parameter or factor does not only assess vocabulary. That's just one part of it. And here again, when it comes to vocabulary, what sort of a vocabulary are they looking for? They're not looking for high-end words. They're not looking for complicated or complex English. What they're looking for is a wide range of vocabulary. Okay, so you have to use wide range of vocabulary, which basically means you have to use synonyms. You don't have to repeat yourself and you have to paraphrase. Okay, so how do we not repeat ourselves? By using synonyms and paraphrasing. Okay, very simple. So wide range of vocabulary. Wide is horizontally, it's not vertically. You're not supposed to write complicated words. You're not supposed to write Shashi Tharoor level of English. You don't have to use PhD words. You just have to use simple words but different words. So it's the focus is on diversity, wide range of vocabulary. The range is the focus. Okay, complexity is not the focus. They don't want you to learn complex words, big words with difficult spellings. That's not what they want. Even if you're using simpler words, it's completely fine till the time you're showcasing wide range of vocabulary. So that's something that should be clear in your minds. It's not about using complex words, it's about using different words. Okay, so uses sufficient range of vocabulary. That's for 7. For 9, it's wide range of vocabulary. And then comes uses less common lexical items. Less common lexical items basically means you don't use common day-to-day words a lot. Some of them it's fine, but if you repeat the same words that you use in your daily life, it would again get repetitive and it would not showcase wide range of vocabulary. Then you should be aware about the style and collocation. Style, of course, it comes handy. Your essay should not be in informal tone. It should be formal. The style of writing should be formal. You do not have to use contractions. You don't have to use abbreviations. You're not allowed, in fact. So contractions and abbreviations are not allowed in any sort of writing. Contractions are allowed in case of your speaking. So in case of your speaking test, you can use words like can't, shouldn't, couldn't, all of that. But in case of your writing, you use the full word. Okay, do not, could not, should not. Okay, everyone's clear with this? So that's one thing. Collocation, basically, anyone who would like to tell me what's collocation? Anyone who's heard of this term before?
It's a combined words, ma'am. For example, like I say, like two words combined together. There will be a few words that comes together.
Yes. Okay. Anyone else?
The way that go together.
Perfectly, Van. The two words basically that go together. Anyone who would have an example for it? So basically, these are words that naturally go together. Naturally is the key word. They go together naturally for any native speaker. Okay. So any example for that?
Maybe nook and corner, ma'am.
Nook and corner. Okay. You can say that. Anything else?
Early riser, something like that.
Early riser. Okay. What could be the incorrect way of writing this word? Okay, I'll tell you a common one. So a lot of students say, I'm going to give a test, okay, or I'm going to give the IELTS test. I gave the IELTS test yesterday. So instead of giving, gave, or will give, the actual word which we should be using with test is take. So I am taking a test, I took a test, or I am going to take a test. These are the words that you should be using with test. You don't give a test, you take a test. All right. So this is a commonly misused collocation. Okay, so this is what you need to keep in mind. And for this, while you will be attempting your essays and your report writings and you'll be submitting it to us, we'll be taking a note of all of that and we'll be correcting your collocations also in the correction of your essays as well as your reports, right? So that's your collocation part. So you need to be mindful of the words that go together and that don't go together. Next is may produce occasional errors in word choice. So of course, if it's a 7-band score, then basically you're making some mistakes also. So occasional errors in word choice, spelling, and word formation. So word choices, you're not choosing the word correctly. Okay. And spellings, you all understand. Word formation is, whether it's going to be ing, tion in the end, what's the formation of the word. So that's what they're looking at. Okay, let's move on to GRA, grammatical range and accuracy. So basically here they're checking how well versed you're with the grammar part and what kind of mistakes you're making or not making. So the first one is uses a variety of complex structures. This is one basic element that's needed to score well in your grammar, using complex sentences or complex structures. Then comes your produces frequent error-free sentences. Try to use as many error-free sentences as possible. Has good control of grammar and punctuation, but again, it's going to be a but, I've already told you, may make a few errors. So some errors are allowed. So don't be too harsh on yourself again that, I'm making a lot of grammatical errors. Few errors are fine even in a 7-band score. So even if you need 7 in your grammar, few errors are fine. Similarly, if you notice in the 9-band score, rare minor errors only occur as slips. Here also, in case of a 9-band, they're still giving you the scope of making a mistake, right? Similarly, in case of your lexical resource, you're allowed to make certain errors which are again slips. It's not like you're making the error again and again. 1 or 2 minor errors are allowed, but if you keep making the same sort of mistakes again and again, then it's habitual. Then it means that you don't understand that particular part. For example, if you're making mistakes with articles, if you're making just once or twice, it's fine. Okay, that's going to be called a rare minor error. But if you've been making the same mistake over and over again in the entire essay, in that case, it becomes a habitual mistake. Okay, you're habituated with this, with it. Aapko nahi aata. You don't know that particular aspect of grammar. So you need to focus on that. Okay, so that is what they'll be looking at. And any questions in this particular slide? I've tried to give you all the details about all the parameters. So if you have any doubts, you can ask me. Any questions, any doubts? Okay, anyone here who has this feeling, ye kyun padha rahe hain hame? Why are they teaching me these things, or why I'm being told about these parameters? Anyone who has this doubt? What's the reason behind going through this slide and not starting directly with the different types of report writing and different types of essays? I hope everyone is satisfied with this one. Any doubts here?
No.
No? All
No,
right,
ma'am.
perfectly fine.
I have one doubt. Okay, somebody said you have to paragraph writing. One paragraph will finish. We have to leave one line. Okay, and some teachers recommend that you don't have to leave the line.
You have to leave a line.
Okay, and
Yeah,
other how we count the words? Just you said for 10 minutes we waste 1, 2, 3,
no,
4,
no,
5
no, no,
like that.
no.
What's that?
Okay, so when you're practicing at home, count the number of words that you're writing in the first sentence and multiply it with the number of sentences that you have written. Okay, you'll get an average. Just write 5 words extra or 5 words more than the average that you have got. And also don't waste your time in counting each and every word. That makes no sense at all. Okay, so when you're practicing, try to see how much you're writing in each sentence, and on your test date, see how much you have written in the first sentence, count the number of words only in the first sentence, and multiply it with the number of sentences that you have written. That's it. Okay, you will get the approximate value, and then you can write 5 words more than that approximate or estimate.
And one more confusion, some people say how much you write, okay, you get more band.
Did you join the session later?
Yeah,
I've actually
because
talked about it. I've actually talked about both of these questions before, but never mind. So it's always quality over quantity. You don't have to write more words. You just have to write a minimum of 250 words in task 1 and 150 words in case of your task 2. That's the minimum requirement. Okay. And when it comes to the maximum, I would not recommend exceeding it by 20 words. So you wind up your task 1 by maximum 180 words and your task 2 by maximum 270 words. Okay, don't take it to 300, 400 words. It's not going to fetch you more band score. If that was the case, people would have been writing 500 words and scoring 9 band score. But the thing is that if you write more, the chances of making errors would also automatically increase, which would impact your other parameters. So it makes no sense to write a lot. Instead of writing a lot, write what the amount that's required, maybe 250 words, 270 words, and write in proper quality. So the quality should be maintained. Don't focus on the quantity.
okay, if we don't have time, run out of time, okay, especially task 2, we can write 250 words. So it will impact less spend or no? And we achieve all the things, we write correctly, all things.
Yeah, 250 is good enough. Don't write lesser than 250 or lesser than 150 words, because if you do that, then you would be penalized.
Oh.
Okay, don't write lesser than the prescribed limit, but if you're writing more than it, it's completely fine.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah. Even writing 255 words and 155 words, that's good enough. It's not like if you write 155 words, you will be scored lesser, and if somebody else writes 200 words, they'll be scored more. That's not the case. It's not about the number of words. It's about the quality of your writing, and also all the 4 descriptors that we have taken care of. Right? Okay, let's move on then. So you can actually go through these slides if you guys want to. So this is our target range, and this is basically the first column. I have cropped it and then put it here. So if anyone wants to read it and wants to ask questions, you can do that. You can also take the screenshot of the slide if needed. And take a minute. If you have any doubts, you can ask, and then we move on to the next one. All right, so let's move on. Task response, a quick recap. So you have to respond to all parts of the question, cover all aspects of the question. That is what you have to do. Then you have to take a stance and maintain it throughout. So this is what you have to do in case of your essay questions. Take a stance, form your opinion, and continue with that opinion throughout your essay. Okay, maintain it throughout. A lot of students, what they do is they would start in their introduction by saying that I completely agree with this particular topic, or I completely agree with XYZ thing. And then in the body paragraphs, they'll end up disagreeing with it. And again, in their conclusion, they'll completely agree with it, which basically confuses the reader, and they would not understand whether you're agreeing or disagreeing. And this confusion is not going to be good for your task response parameter. So you have to be very clear about what you think right in the beginning. Form your opinion, form your stance, and then stick to that stance throughout your essay. It should be consistent in your introduction, body paragraphs, and conclusion. Okay, so this is something that's very important, and I have corrected so many essays, and I've seen that a lot of students make mistake with this particular point. Okay, of course, most of them also not respond to all parts of the question, but the grave mistake is here, it lies here. Okay, so please don't switch between your opinion. Whatever you have come up with, whatever opinion you're taking, whatever stance you're taking, just stay with it throughout the essay. Then the next one is elaborate and plan. Elaboration is really important. You have to present a fully developed position with relevant, extended, and supported ideas. So here I have mentioned, as mentioned in the previous slide, also you have to write supporting statements. You have to support them with examples or surveys so that the examiner understands what you think. Don't leave it on their assumptions that they will understand whatever you're saying on their own. Until and unless you put it on the sheet of paper, they will not be able to understand what you're trying to say. So don't write half sentences. Don't leave it on the assumption of the reader. Don't think that they'll understand it. Write everything in detail, elaborate it with relevant and extended supporting ideas. All good. And then adhere to the word limit. This again is specific to the essay. When it comes to the task one, you have to write a minimum of, at least is the keyword, so a minimum of 250 here in case of essay and 150 in case of your task one. So this is what your task response looks like: responding to all parts of the task, all parts of the question, taking a stance and maintaining it, elaborating your ideas properly and explaining them with supporting ideas and your examples or surveys, and adhering to the word limit. This is what you have to do so that you score a good band in your task response or task achievement parameter. Next up is your coherence cohesion. So again, this is the screenshot, or the cropped version of the same column, and you guys can go through it. Again, your target range should be 7 or above. Okay, don't aim for 6 at all, because if you want to score 6.5 or 7, you need a 7 in all of your parameters. Here's this something called referencing, which is also important. Referencing, anyone who knows what referencing is? Any idea what referencing is?
When you're referring to the words told by some others or something.
Can you give an example?
Like using one of the quotes written by some other personality or referring their ideas about it.
Okay. Is that so? Anyone else? Is she right?
Quoting someone. Okay. Like, yeah, research or any writer or report of any newspaper.
Okay. Anyone else? Is this what referencing means? No idea?
Referencing to the question?
Referencing to the question? No. What do you mean by referencing to the question?
Like suppose we are writing an essay and we say from mentioned question, or from the question that we have asked, and we again and again saying that in every paragraph.
You're not completely right, but you're close enough. So it's not about the question, it's not about referring to the question, and it's also not about referring to quotes or referring to the right source. It's not about source or the reference that we use in our, schools and colleges. Here, referencing basically means that you're using pronouns in place of nouns. So let's say instead of writing Ram goes to school, Ram comes back home and completes his homework, Rams goes out and plays, Rams comes back home and sleeps. Okay, instead of saying Ram, I would use the word he. Okay, or I would use the
Okay.
pronoun he. So I'm referring to Ram by using the word he. So that's referencing here. Similarly, if I am using, let's say, I'm talking about some object or a thing, then I would use the word it. Okay, if I'm talking about a group of people or a group of individuals, I would use the word they. Okay, so these are the words that are used for referencing: they, them, he, she, her, his, it. Okay, so these are the words used for referencing. All right, is that clear to everyone? And quotes are not necessarily true in case of your essay writing, simply because they're not talking about your ideas, they're not grading your ideas, so they don't care whether you're bluffing or whether you're writing accurate surveys and examples. Even if you're bluffing, it's completely fine till the time you're expressing your bluff correctly. So expression is the focus in case of your IELTS test. They don't really care about your ideas. They don't care about the source of your ideas. And if they don't care about the source of your ideas, why would they care about the reference? They would not care about who gave that quote or who wrote that thing or which newspaper did that survey. They would not care about it. So you can bluff around. You can simply write, according to a recent survey by so and so newspaper. You can write anything. Nobody cares here. So referencing in terms of coherence and cohesion parameter, in case of your IELTS writing, referencing basically refers to, or basically means that you are talking to a person or a object or a thing that you have already spoken about in the previous sentence without using the same word again. So instead of Ram, I'm using Ram goes to school. He comes back home and completes his homework. Again, he and his. Then I would say he would then go out and play. He would then come back home and sleep. Okay, so you get the point? Everyone's clear with referencing? This is again very important because the ones who do not have a good command over the English language end up using the noun again and again. Okay, so instead of using the noun again and again, I'll give you a more relevant example. So if the question is about tourism, a lot of students would start every point with tourism. Tourism is advantageous to the economy because. Tourism is advantageous to the people because. So instead of writing tourism, in the first sentence you write tourism has numerous advantages, full stop. Then you use it to refer to tourism. It boosts the economy. It helps people in rejuvenating their minds and bodies because they travel and explore and blah, blah, blah. Okay, getting the point? So now go back to your previous essays, the essays you have written, and just check whether you have used referencing or have you repeated the word again and again. Okay. All right. Anyone, any doubts? So it's not about quotes yet again.
Ma'am, these parameters are just for essay or these
It's for both. Both.
Okay.
Both your task 1 and task 2. All right, so moving on, again, coherence and cohesion, logical sequencing of ideas, which means similar ideas should be clubbed together. So advantages, if you're writing advantages, they have to be in one paragraph. If you're writing disadvantages, they have to be in the other paragraph. Don't mess it up. Don't write one advantage, one disadvantage, again, one advantage, one disadvantage. Don't write alternatively. There was this student in my previous batch, and he asked me this question: should we write one problem followed by the solution of that problem, and again second problem followed by the solution of that problem in the second body paragraph? So if the question is asking you about problems and solutions of a particular topic or a particular issue, the first paragraph should talk only about the problems and the second paragraph should talk about only the solutions. Don't write them alternatingly. Okay, it should not be like one problem, one solution, one problem, one solution. That's not the right way of sequencing your ideas. Just like when you're writing about your routine, you start from morning till night, not from your afternoon, morning, night. It should be a proper sequence. Similarly, when you're clubbing your ideas, similar ideas should be clubbed together. All right? All good, all clear here. So if someone is writing problem, solution, similarly cause, effect, a lot of students might be doing that, I'm not sure. So if you're writing cause, effect alternatingly, don't do that. Causes should be in one paragraph and effects should be in the other paragraph. Okay. Then write in a structured manner. So structure this is a prototype. This is one of the simplest ways of structuring your essay, which is introduction, first body paragraph, second body paragraph, and conclusion. Some of your essays might require a third body paragraph, or some of you might be using third body paragraph, which is completely fine. Yet again, writing is very subjective in nature. There's no right or wrong. So even if you write three body paragraphs, it's completely fine if you're writing relevant ideas in those paragraphs. Okay. Then comes your cohesion. It's basically
Excuse
using.
me, ma'am. Some
Yes,
disturbance
Latika.
is coming. Yeah.
Is it for everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am. Yes, background sound.
Background sound. Okay. Is it fine now?
No, ma'am.
Is
No,
it
ma'am.
better? What sort of a sound is it? Okay. Is it better now?
Yeah. No better.
Yes.
I haven't changed anything. Okay. All right. So basically, connectors are used to appropriately connect your sentences and your paragraphs to one another. Okay. Then comes your lexical resource. Again, that's the same slide, so I guess I'll just skip it. And wide range of vocabulary, please focus on the wide range of vocabulary, use different words and avoid repetition. And that can be done by focusing on the synonyms rather than using the same words again and again. Appropriate collocations, so words and phrases that go together naturally and sound correct to the native speaker. So these are the words that are naturally set to go together. Okay. So again, the same example, when will you take the IELTS test? It's not like give the IELTS test would be incorrect here. Then you have to use topic specific vocabulary, which we'll be discussing on a daily basis with whatever question we pick up. And last but not the least, it's the usage of correct spellings. Okay. Grammar, again, the same slide. So I'll just skip it. And grammar is pretty basic. So everything would come under grammar, from your tenses, voices, comparatives, punctuations. And then when it comes to variety of sentences, they want you to use simple, compound, complex, and conditional sentences. So again, I would want you to write your essays, submit it with us, and then we'll see what kind of problems you're facing with grammar, and it'll be mentioned in your feedback, and then you focus on only those areas. Don't try to learn each and every part of the grammar. Yet again, I want you to remember that it carries just 25% of the weightage. It's not going to impact your writing a lot. Okay, so if you're making errors with your tenses, then just focus on your tenses. If you're making errors with articles, just focus on articles and try to improve them. Don't try to learn everything. Okay, so this is about your parameters. Any doubts here? Any
What
questions?
do you mean by conditional sentences?
Conditional sentences are if and then sentences. So you are creating a condition in those sentences. So if A happens, then B will happen. Okay.
Oh.
So if it rains, then I will not go to play. Okay. Or if it, sorry.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, so if and then sentences. So now that you know conditional sentences are if and then sentences, try to use them in both your writing and your speaking. Okay, try to frame sentences. For example, in case of your third round in your speaking, if they're giving you, let's say, a question, what do you think about so and so thing? So you can create an if and then situation. If it is like this, then I would react like this. If this happens, then this should happen. So you can use if and then words, right, in your sentences. So that's basically your conditional sentence. And it's not like you don't naturally use it. I'm pretty sure most of you guys unknowingly frame if and then sentences. You're just not mindful of them. You're not just aware that you're doing it. But now that you know, you'll end up using them even more. Okay. So simple, complex, compound sentences. Simple sentences are basically sentences that convey just one idea. This is a simple sentence when you just convey one idea, like Ram is going to school, one idea, nothing else. Compound sentences are two simple sentences combined together with a conjunction. For example, Ram is going to school and he will study there. So two ideas, going to school and studying there. So that's a compound sentence. Complex sentence is sentences that are dependent upon, like one part of the sentence is dependent upon the other part, and without which one part of the sentence will hold no meaning. Okay. So although is one such example. So I'll just take you back to that. I just saw one although sentence here. So uses a range of cohesive devices appropriately, although there may be some underuse, overuse. Okay, so there may be some underuse, overuse becomes your dependent clause, and your independent clause is the first half of the sentence because it conveys a meaning of its own. Uses a range of cohesive devices appropriately. Okay, so these are the sentences that would fall under the category of complex sentences. Then tenses, voices, comparatives, punctuations. Any doubts with these? Punctuations, again, you don't have to think a lot about punctuations. You don't have to stress a lot about punctuations. Grammar carries 25% weightage, and punctuation is one tiny part of the grammatical range and accuracy parameter. So it's not going to carry a lot of weightage. Just be mindful of your full stops. At least use your full stops correctly always. So priority one is using full stops correctly. Then comes your commas. Your commas should be used correctly again. Try to use at least 90% or 95% of your commas correctly. One or two incorrect usages or one or two places where you miss out on your commas, that's completely fine. It's not going to bother a lot. Okay, so now that you've understood about the different parameters and how much weightage each one of them carries, you can focus and prepare accordingly. You don't unnecessarily have to spend hours and hours in learning tenses or hours and hours in learning how to use voices. Okay. Similar is the case with vocabulary. You don't have to keep memorizing words from some PDF file. All right, any questions so far? Any doubts that are coming in your mind? Anything that you want to ask? Yes, no. Was it boring today? Because this usually is boring because it's very factual. You don't get to interact a lot. So yeah, any doubts?
No.
No, all good. How about having a bullet point? Deepthi, could you please explain your question? Bullet point as in? Sorry, Deepitha.
Hi, ma'am. I have a question, please.
Yes.
For connecting sentences using cohesive, but how can I use a cohesion to connect paragraph?
So it really depends upon what you're writing. If you are giving similar information, then you will use different connectors or different cohesive devices. If you're giving contradictory information, you'll give separate cohesive devices. I'll just list it down here for you guys. 1 second.
I mean, how to connect paragraph with each other? This is the question.
The thing is, it depends upon your paragraph. I can't give you one rule that will apply to all your paragraphs. That's not possible. It really depends upon what you are writing. That will decide which connector you'll be using. Okay, we'll be learning that. And
the question might be how paragraph can be connected to each other, because a paragraph is a single piece of writing.
Oh, okay. So basically, when you're writing, okay, for example, you're writing 2 ideas in 1 paragraph. So the first idea, when you start your first idea, you would start by saying to begin with. And when you're writing your second idea, you can start by saying in addition to. Okay, that's how you connect or you use connectors between the paragraph. That's what you're asking? Within the paragraph, how we can use cohesive devices. Is that the question? Is that the question?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Fine. So, okay, anyone else? Any other questions? Okay, I'll quickly run you through different types of essay 2 questions. We'll just brush it up so that, you know, we still have some time. So quickly brush it up through it. And then we'll focus on these directives in detail from tomorrow onwards. So basically, these are the 3 broad categories of directives. What are directives now? Anyone who knows the meaning of directives? So directives are the words at the end of every question, which basically give you the direction as to what should be written in the essay. So directives come from the word direction. Okay, it directs you, it gives you the direction as to what should be written in your body paragraphs or what should be written in your essay. So there are 3 broad categories here. First one is choose a side, then view both sides, and the third one is describe and explain. Now here, each one of these is subdivided. So when it comes to choose a side, the directives would look like agree or disagree, to what extent do you agree or disagree, and give your opinion. So in this case, you basically favor one thing more than the other. Okay, so you basically are inclined towards one thing more than the other. So agree or disagree would look something like this. So can anyone please read out this question? Asma, could you please do it? Yeah.
Yes, sure. Some people think that big international sporting events are not worthwhile for the host country. Do you agree or disagree?
Okay, so Asma, take a minute, read the question again, and I want others to do the same thing. Underline the keywords here and tell me what would your opinion be. Just tell me, don't give me the reasons, just tell me what would it be. Take your time and everyone else do it in the chat box.
Some people think that big international sporting events are not worthwhile for the host country. Do you agree or disagree?
Okay, till the time you think, I'll tell you something about IELTS essay questions. Okay, so the essay question, the first few sentences would be statements or trends. They will not ask you anything. So if you notice, till the part host countries, this particular thing is not asking you about anything. This is not a question. This is just a statement. They're telling you that some people think that big international sporting events are not worthwhile for the host country. Have they asked you any questions so far? No. There's no question so far. They've just given you a statement. They've just told you about a trend, or they've just given you a statement. Now the question starts in the next sentence. Do you agree or disagree to the trend given above? That's the question. So once you've understood the trend, the scenario, then you have to answer whether you agree or disagree. Okay, yeah, Asma, continue.
What we can, I'm agree or disagree. I will give my opinion.
Yes, please. What do you think? If this question was asked to you, what would you answer?
I'm disagree with this.
Disagree with.
Yeah. Because all international sporting events, okay, they are good for the tourism, for the economy.
Good. Okay. Anyone else? Any other points? So she says that she would disagree with this statement because they're definitely worthwhile because they're advantageous to the economy of the host country. Along with that, it attracts tourism. So that's like a win-win situation. Anyone who has a different perspective towards this question? And if someone also disagrees, can you please add on to the points given by Asma? Patao. Okay, everyone's understood the question. Anyone who has a doubt with the question, I always suggest students to translate the question into their mother tongue for more clarity. You can just read it twice in English, and the third time you read it in your mother tongue. Okay, so basically, they're asking whether international sporting events such as Olympics or Commonwealth Games are they advantageous to the host country or are they disadvantageous to the host country? Okay, now you just have to tell what you think. So, anyone else who disagrees? Dipita, Latika, now I have to call out names. Manya, Satish.
Hello, ma'am. I disagree, ma'am.
Disagree, all right. Why?
Because I think tournaments are a great source of revenue for the organizing country.
Good, okay.
It's also open for employment opportunity for their
Very
citizens
good,
as well.
very good. Perfect.
So
Good job.
I think it's worth.
Very good. Okay, anyone else? Pama, do you want to say something?
Yes, ma'am. It will help to build a new infrastructure.
Okay, good enough. Okay, infrastructure development. Okay, anyone else? Or do you want to add something? Yeah, sure.
Ma'am, I want to add in agree point that international sporting event help in the hosting country economy and giving employment for the
So
people.
this is disagreement, right?
So this is okay, ma'am. Yeah.
Read the question again. It says not worthwhile, right?
I also completely disagree because socially that country would be famous. Sorry.
Very good. Global recognition. Instead of
Yes,
famous, the better word that you can use. Please note it down, guys. I hope you guys have a notebook in front of you because I would not be writing everything. So sometimes I might say a good word or I might use a vocabulary that would come in handy to you. So just write it. Global recognition. Instead of saying it will make the country famous, it's always better to use a word like global recognition. It would give that country global recognition. Okay, so global recognition, perfectly fine. So I guess we have 4-5 points for disagreement. What about agreement? Anyone who agrees?
Ma'am, I partly agree. Like in terms of finance and for the host country, they have to construct special like events or they have to construct some special area for the sports.
Infra, okay. Yeah.
Type.
So how is that disadvantageous? You need to tell. Because I guess Pama said infrastructure development will take place. So it can be both positive and negative. It depends upon your explanation, how you make it sound positive or negative. So see, infrastructure development can be a positive point, can be a negative point. Everything is dependent upon how you explain it. So Pama, can you please give us the positive aspect of infra?
Ma'am, we
आप
can,
explanation में क्या लिखोगे? What will you write in the explanatory sentence?
ma'am, I can write if they build like a swimming pool for event or like hotels
Stadium,
and
yeah.
stadiums after the completion of Commonwealth or Olympics, they will use for their country sportsmen, so they can practice over there. And they
Perfect. Very good. Okay, so basically you're saying that the youth or the youngsters who want to pursue that particular sport can utilize that particular infrastructure. Perfectly fine. So that becomes a positive. Now, who was the other person? Latika, were
Yoshna,
you?
ma'am.
Yeah.
Ma'am, can we write both the points like agree or disagree, or is it
It
only?
depends. It depends. Now here, I was coming to that. In case of agree or disagree question, it's always easier to take one side. Okay. Go with your gut feeling. Imagine that this question is asked to you by your friend. How will you answer? Okay. If you think that most of your points are positive and if you can come up with 4 positive points, then you can completely agree to it. And I have noticed that most people in the class most people in the class disagreed to it, which basically means they agreed to the fact that host countries would be benefited by international sporting events. So if you're of that mindset that it will give more help or it would benefit the host country, then write 4 points in agreement and you don't have to disagree. Okay. If you want to say that it would benefit them 80%, but 20% there would be some disadvantage to the host country, then you can write stronger points for agreement and weaker points for disagreement. So that's called 80-20 approach, wherein you write 80% or you basically stronger points for whatever you're favoring. So if you're saying that it would lead to more benefits than disadvantages or more advantages than disadvantages, that you write, then you write more solid points for disagreement and less solid points for agreement. Okay.
Yeah, because I was thinking if I fall off words for disagreement if possible, so can I write it for agree also?
Yeah, but it should be
Okay.
convincing. Yeah. So, but then I guess everybody came up with the ideas when it comes to disagreement pretty quickly. That's what I observed, right? So I'll just mention the ideas again. The first and the foremost was employment generation, tourism, growth of economy, infrastructure development, and then you have global recognition. So we have 5 points, and each of these points have to be explained properly. You don't have to write 5 points, just write 2 points in each of your body paragraphs, 2 points in the first body paragraph, 2 points in the second body paragraph, and that's about it. Okay. And you can pick any 2 points, explain it properly, write an example or a survey. I'll show you the format of writing a body paragraph later on in the next couple of sessions. But right now, just understand that you have to write a total of 4 points and 2 points in each of your body paragraphs. Is that clear to everyone?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes,
okay.
ma'am.
Okay. Now, still, I would like to discuss the points for agreement. So someone said about infra. So who was it? Was it Latika? I'm not sure. Okay.
Yeah.
So Latika, can you give me the disadvantage of infra? Like Pama has already told us about the advantages of infra, that the natives or the residents of that area will be able to play after that particular international sporting event has been completed. How would you justify the disadvantage of infra? Until then, others also come up with the disadvantages to the host countries.
Well, if we make some infrastructure, then it will very difficult to maintain these.
Good.
The
Good.
event for
Okay.
which we are construct this kind of things. So after the completion of games overcomes, then it is not in use and it is difficult to maintain. So the maintenance cost is very high.
Okay. Perfectly fine. So you can give the example of the stadium that was constructed in Delhi during the Commonwealth Games, which is almost in ruins right now. I guess it's not maintained properly, and it's in disuse, basically nobody is using it. So that can be given as an example, or you can just make up or bluff around with another example. It's completely fine. So Latika, this is how you have to explain your point. It's not sufficient to come up with the main idea. Explanation of that idea is also important. So I want to give this live example to everyone. Let's say both Pama and Latika have written about infrastructure development, but Pama has written it in the positives and Latika has written it in the negatives. Now, if you both just leave it with infrastructure development full stop and don't explain it properly, and you think that, you know, the examiner or the reader or maybe ma'am will understand on her own, that's not the case. I would not understand why you're calling it positive or why you're calling it negative until and unless you explain it to me. So explanation and reasoning is very essential. Is that clear to everyone? So
Yes.
one point can be positive. I mean, one main idea can be seen as both positive and negative. You just have to present it in that way. ठीक है? All clear? All good?
Yes,
I want to ask something.
Yeah.
You said you have to write 4 ideas, okay? Rather than 4 ideas, we can choose 2 ideas. First body paragraph, 1 idea, and second body paragraph, second idea. Is that good, or we have to write 4?
So I'll give you my reasoning behind it and then you can choose. So yet again, writing is subjective. So it's not like if you write 2 ideas, then they'll deduct your marks. And if you write 4, they'll give you more bands. I have 2, 3 simple reasons why I ask students to write 4 ideas. Number one is that if you just write one idea, you might not be able to reach the word limit. One idea in each paragraph, you might not be able to reach the word limit. Number two, you might end up repeating yourself again and again because you have to complete 250 words, and writing just 2 ideas for 250 words can be too less according to me. And then if you're writing the same thing over and over again, you'll end up repeating words, you'll end up repeating your ideas, and ultimately it'll impact your lexical resource. Okay, so this is why I would recommend that you come up at least with 3 ideas. If you can't come up with 4 ideas, it's completely fine. But a minimum of 3 ideas should be there, because the more the ideas, the more content you will have, the more examples you will have, the more vocabulary you will be able to use. However, if you just write one idea per paragraph, then you will not have that much content, and you'll keep repeating the same thing over and over again, which will not allow you to use more vocabulary. Right? I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. So that will limit or restrict your lexical resource, and it will also restrict you from framing good sentences or writing better examples, because at the end of the day, all you're doing is repeating your same idea in different words. I've seen a lot of students do this. They'll write one idea in one paragraph, and because that idea gets conveyed in just 2 or 3 sentences, to complete the remaining part of that particular paragraph, they'll write in other words and they'll repeat the same thing by paraphrasing it, which makes no sense at all, because ultimately what the reader feels is that I've already read the same thing and you have again written the same thing by, you know, paraphrasing the sentence. So that's basically illogical to me.
3, at least 3 or 4, right? 4 ideas.
Minimum, yeah, minimum of
The problem is I gave twice, okay, writing. When I will go, at that pressure is there. I will stress out, okay, all the ideas, I will blank out the ideas. I can't generate more ideas in the exam.
Okay, we'll be doing that activity. We'll be brainstorming during the class. You can come up with the questions that you are not sure about and you're not sure about the ideas for. Hello, can you hear me?
Ma'am, how can we include 4 ideas, or the structure of including 4 ideas in one essay? I mean, can one paragraph tolerate more than one idea?
Yeah, in every paragraph, you write 2 ideas. So you write your introduction. In the first body paragraph, you write 2 main ideas. In the second body paragraph, again, you write 2 ideas. Then you conclude the essay by writing the conclusion.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so that's it for today. And I'll be taking up your other types of questions tomorrow. But I guess we have left with this agreement, right? So quickly tell me different points. I'm sorry. So we were left with infrastructure development and then we deviated from it. So yeah, tell me 3 more points if you believe that the host country would be in a disadvantageous position. What would be your other points? Give me 3 more
Can I
points.
give one?
Yeah, sure.
Ma'am, can I go?
Yeah.
I do agree with this about statement. Has for the pandemic situation, it's not worth it for the host country to conduct an international event, as it will just make more expenses for the host country to make sure the other team or the people who are coming from outside, they have better infrastructure or to have them perfectly fine in the host country, as well
Yes.
as other team might give bad feedback about the host country, about the management and the
Okay,
lack
now this
of.
is a good point, but I would say it's a very specific point. So you can write it, but you can also come up with more general points. Okay, so this is fine. I'm not saying it's incorrect, but you don't necessarily have to come up with such a specific point. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's good to go. Okay. What else? Yeah, Sai, do you want to say something? Okay. So anything else? Think from the angle of society. Is it going to lead to any negative impacts on the society, on the people?
Traffic, problem of traffic.
No, I won't recommend. It's relevant, but it's not appropriate here. So you also need to ensure that it's this kind of like the same thing. It's associated with the topic, but it's very far-fetched, right? It's far-fetched. It's not directly associated. So you can talk about probably illegal activities like, people coming from different countries, can security can lead to criminal activities, drug trafficking, and all of that can be mentioned. Yet again, it's not very relevant, but definitely more relevant than traffic. Traffic is something that is not solely associated to international sporting events and hosting them, right? And yeah, anything else apart from this? In that case, if you're talking about traffic, you can also talk about pollution. The people who are coming in would pollute the host country, or basically pollute the stadium or the whereabouts of the stadium, and that's going to lead to a negative impact on the ecology, or basically that area. So that's another way of writing, but it's yet again not very relevant. And one good point that you guys missed out on in case of the positives of hosting an international sporting event, that would be that it would motivate the natives. It would motivate the youngsters, it would motivate the children to pursue sports or to pursue their passion. Because when they see their favorite sports person playing in front of them in the stadium, or participating in the sporting event, then they would feel motivated and they would want to imitate their role models. So basically, you can also say it would generate this positive aura around them, that they would be motivated to pursue their passion or to explore their potential. So that's a point that you can write in the positive
Ma'am,
part. Yep.
ma'am, I would like to add a point on agreement that if the host country organize such a sports which is not relevant to their culture, like in USA, if they host a cricket tournament, then may not be they are getting a good revenue out of that sports, because the people around there, they are not playing or interested on that sports.
Okay, so it's similar to the COVID point. So did you come up with the COVID point? Were you the one who gave that point? I'm so sorry,
No,
I
no, no,
can't
no,
see
no.
the.
I'm not
No,
the
ma'am,
one.
it was
Okay.
me, Amit.
Okay, so the thing is, Amit and Akash, now both your points are very specific. Now, do you see anywhere that they're talking about a sporting event that's not relevant culturally to that particular place? They're not talking about that.
Yes,
They're just
yes.
talking about
Okay,
any
okay,
big
ma'am.
international sporting event. So, this is how you deviate from the topic again. The very purpose of discussing different types of questions is to make you understand how task response can get tricky. You know, if you over assess a question, again you can end up deviating from the topic, and if you don't understand a question properly, again you would end up deviating from the topic. So you should
Okay,
not
ma'am.
over analyze, you should also not under analyze it. Just read it and just understand it from a general standpoint. Okay,
Oh, okay,
so
ma'am.
don't make it specific to COVID situation or the pandemic situation. Don't make it specific to a situation where the sport is not being accepted by the public. Okay, so yeah, that is about this question. And so we have 5-6 points for disagreement, and I hope you can frame it well. Now you don't have to worry about framing it. Today and tomorrow we'll only be discussing. Okay, we'll be focusing on brainstorming while we read different types of questions. We'll be understanding the different types of questions. We'll be going through the different types of questions and understanding what should be the content. How the content should be written would be taken care of in the session day after tomorrow and henceforth, right? So that's about it. Any doubts? Anything that you want to ask? Wastage of agricultural land. No, again, Pama, it's very specific. Then you have to give the example that in a certain place, you can, give a hypothetical name that, let's say in Haryana, the agricultural field was changed into, or was, instead of the agricultural field, there was a stadium constructed there to host Olympics, no, I mean Olympics or whatever, like Commonwealth, or you can give any example. Ultimately, we're bluffing, so you can say anything. Therefore, it was disadvantageous to the farming sector or the agricultural sector. But yet again, not sounding very correct, not very relevant again. So basically here again, you can talk about infra being misused, underutilized, maintenance cost, and then you can also talk about the fact that the economy, basically a lot has to be spent to host people. Even if you're hosting a party at your house, you have to spend money, right? Similarly, if a country, if India or if any country is hosting such events, they have to look after the athletes or the sports person that are coming to their country. They have to provide for 5-star accommodation, they have to bear the expenses. Definitely they would also get revenue. So that's what I said. Whatever point you write, it can have positive angle, negative angle. It all depends upon how you explain it. So just like the infra development, here also when it comes to economy, you can talk about economy in the negative sense or in the positive sense, depending upon what stance you're taking. Everyone's clear with it? Any doubts
Yes, ma'am.
with the stance part? Okay, perfectly fine. So the investment can be positive, can be negative. The revenue can be positive. These expenses can be negative. So it really depends upon your frame of mind and how you explain your point. So that's about it. Tomorrow we'll be looking at the rest of the directives, and we'll also be brainstorming simultaneously. So I want you guys to be ready with your ideas to interact. Even if you're giving wrong ideas, it's completely fine. It's good to give wrong ideas during the practice session instead of giving wrong ideas or writing wrong ideas in your exam, in your actual test. So this is where we discuss, we'll interact, and we'll come up with different ideas. All right. So thank you so much. And any last doubts?